At exactly 7:02 a.m., the Bank of Richmond's manager, Henry Dobbins, unlocked the front doors to begin his routine. What greeted him wasn't the clink of coins or the smell of fresh inked ledgers, but scorched air, blood on marble floors, and a silence that felt posthumous. The vault door had been blown off its hinges. Charred iron twisted like ribs. A man, the night watchman, George Kilpatrick, was found bound, bruised, and barely breathing, tucked behind a toppled filing cabinet. His lantern was shattered, his hat soaked in sweat. The vault, once the most secure in the state, had been cleaned out. $317,000 in cash, gold, and bonds, gone. No footprints. No witnesses. Just a city left shivering in the ashes of its own illusions. We thought the war was over. We thought we were safe. 5 years after the Civil War, Richmond, Virginia was a city straddling memory and hope. Burned during the Confederacy's fall, it had become a patchwork of revival, cobbled streets, half-rebuilt churches, bustling saloons, and a fragile economy stitched together by trust in institutions like the Bank of Richmond. Families prayed at dawn and played fiddles by firelight. Horses clopped down Main Street as children sold newspapers that screamed, "A New South." Optimism lived on porches. And among the people was Samuel "Slim" Turner, a thin, soft-spoken black man with a mop bucket and a bowed head. For 3 years, he worked as a janitor at the bank. Harmless. Invisible. But Slim had a gift. A photographic memory and a mind that noticed everything. How often the guards swapped. When the police patrols passed. Which vault lever stuck during closing. He swept the floors and memorized the vault. By 1869, Slim wasn't sweeping alone. He was listening to Red Jack McCaffrey. A former Confederate raider turned outlaw, Red Jack had disappeared after Appomattox, rumored to have killed a dozen men during guerrilla holdouts in the Shenandoah. In Richmond he re-emerged, slick and smooth-tongued, claiming to be a tobacco trader. But he wasn't selling anything. He was assembling a crew. They didn't just want money. They wanted revenge too. In smoke-choked taverns and dim boarding houses, Red Jack's plan took shape. He brought in Patrick and Sean O'Reilly, Irish twins who had once blown a hole through a Union payroll train near Knoxville. The ghost, a whisper of a man whose real name no one knew. Some said he was a freedman trained in lockpicking by a Confederate spy ring. Others said he'd never been caught because he never left fingerprints. No one knew where he lived. Only that he could slip into a building like fog. They rehearsed for months. Bought up stolen dynamite from rail yards. Practiced drilling on scrap safes buried in the woods. Slim, still janitor by day, smuggled out key details. The exact vault blueprints, staff meal times, and a copy of the watchman's skeleton key. And the scariest part? No one suspected a thing. While the city danced to fiddle tunes and held public baptisms by the river, 5 men trained like soldiers, plotting every second of their entry and escape. The only red flag came from a boy named Caleb, 10 years old, who swore he saw 3 bearded men measuring the alley behind the bank with rope. His father laughed it off. Too much Wild West nonsense, son. Nobody listened. It was a quiet night, and then it blew Richmond apart. March 12, 1870, 11:49 p.m. The moon hovered low over the James River. Thick mist hugged the cobblestones. In the shadows near the side entrance of the bank, 5 men stood in silence, dressed in wool coats and black gloves. At 12:03 a.m., Slim unlocked the side door. Inside, George Kilpatrick, the night watchman, barely noticed the draft before a black sack went over his head. He was pistol-whipped once, gagged, and dragged behind a desk. The O'Reilly twins worked fast. They layered sandbags and blankets across the vault entrance to absorb the sound. Dynamite was packed into the locking mechanism, primed with a long fuse trailing through a metal pipe. At 12:19 a.m., the hallway lit up like lightning. The muffled whump of the blast rattled windows down Main Street, but no one stirred. It was just thunder, they assumed. The vault split open. Inside, bundles of currency, gold bars, bonds in bearer form, uncounted wealth. By 12:38 a.m., they were gone. Out the alley. down to the docks. Slim Turner had bribed a dock worker named Eustace to keep a riverboat ready. The gang boarded, vanished into the fog, headed north toward Baltimore. And Richmond still slept. It wasn't just a robbery. It was a humiliation. By 8 a.m., every newspaper press in the city was roaring. The Richmond vault raided. $317,000 gone in midnight strike. City betrayed by insider? Crowds gathered outside the bank. Local ministers called it a divine reckoning. The mayor blamed carpetbaggers. Confederate veterans whispered it was Union revenge. But when the Pinkerton Detective Agency arrived 3 days later, the case turned serious. Led by Alan Pinkerton himself, they traced the gang's escape route, interviewed the riverboat captain who remembered the strange, quiet men with northern accents and full pockets. Within 6 weeks, the O'Reilly brothers were caught in a New York City flophouse. They had gambled away over $20,000. They were tried in Richmond in the summer of 1870. The courtroom overflowed. Both brothers refused to name their partners. They were sentenced to 20 years in Virginia State Penitentiary. But Red Jack? Slim? The ghost? Never found. Some said Slim fled to Haiti with the help of abolitionist allies. Others believed the ghost never boarded the riverboat. He just vanished. Rumors claim Red Jack died in a gunfight in Kansas under a different name. None of it confirmed. To this day, old-timers in Richmond say there's gold buried somewhere along the James River. That on foggy nights, you can still hear the ghost ping of the vault explosion. The Bank of Richmond rebuilt, but it never recovered its prestige. Within 2 years, it was absorbed into a larger northern bank. The heist changed everything. Banks fortified their vaults. Law enforcement modernized. Pinkerton's fame exploded. But the real story, the haunting, twisted brilliance of a gang that watched from the shadows and vanished with a fortune, became legend. A legend of trust broken, gold stolen, and 3 phantoms who walked into history and disappeared into smoke.
Like and subscribe.